No key had ever left a door closed to Gerda throughout her life. She was the oldest locksmith in town, her shop a bastion of clanking metal and ancient wisdom nestled amidst modern facades. Gerda knew the secret of forging iron, the subtle art of shaping wood, and the intricate dance of unlocking even the most stubborn, rust-eaten mechanisms. For Gerda, the world was a tangible, mechanical place, its principles as simple and reliable as a well-oiled hinge. A lock had a key, and that was the immutable law of security. But then, an insidious whisper of change began to drift through the cobbled streets, the spread of smart doors. Doors no one opened by hand, locks controlled by a flick of a finger on a luminous screen. Gerda watched this evolution with a deepening frown, finding it all utterly unnecessary, cold, and profoundly untrustworthy. "I'd trust my own calloused fingers over a machine any day," she'd often declare to anyone who'd listen, or even to herself, as she meticulously filed a new tooth on a key. A subtle sneer, a familiar crinkle around her kind but skeptical eyes, would cross her face when she caught sight of a sleek, new smart lock gleaming on a neighbor's door. It was an affront to everything she believed in. Gerda never held back her vocal criticisms of these modern marvels. When young Alex, Alara's energetic grandson, burst into her shop, smartphone clutched in his hand, explaining the new system they'd installed on his grandmother's door, Gerda had simply raised an eyebrow, a practiced gesture of disapproval. "So you trust machines now, do you?" She'd scoffed, her voice laced with an old-world cynicism. "What if the power goes out, eh? Or that phone thing breaks? Then you'll be calling me, and I'll just have to come and break your fancy old-fashioned door open with a crowbar, won't I?" Alex, bless his modern heart, had tried to explain about backups and batteries. Gerda had merely waved a dismissive hand. "And it even says it'll notify you if the door stays open," he'd added, a hint of excitement in his voice. Gerda had muttered to herself, loud enough for Alex to hear, "Nonsense! The world's gone mad. Talking doors, next thing you know, they'll be making my tea." But deep down, despite her outward disdain, a small, insistent spark of curiosity had begun to ignite. The idea of a machine talking gnawed at her, a tiny, unsettling burr under her traditional saddle. How could an inanimate object possess such awareness? As evening fell, casting long shadows across her workshop, Gerda was about to latch her own heavy wooden door when she heard it, a faint, almost disembodied mechanical voice emanating from Alara's house across the street. "Attention! Front door open? Please check. Door open." Gerda froze, her hand on her own sturdy lock. She listened intently. It was really talking. My goodness, she thought to herself, a shiver running down her spine that had nothing to do with the evening chill. The next day, as Gerda worked diligently in her shop, the same monotonous, insistent voice began again from Alara's house. "Attention! Front door open. Please check. Door open." Gerda initially tried to ignore it, shrugging it off as another one of those modern quirks. But the continuous, unceasing alerts began to chip away at her resolve. She hadn't seen Alara all morning, which was unusual for the spry old woman who usually tended her garden with the sunrise. A slight, unfamiliar worry began to creep into Gerda's mind. The machine's relentless insistence felt different this time. It implied something more significant than just a simple oversight. It was almost urgent. Gerda hesitantly left her shop, her trusty old toolkit almost instinctively clutched in her hand, and walked towards Alara's door. It was indeed slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness visible within. "Might as well take a look, I suppose," she mumbled to herself, her heart quickening. Maybe she dropped her key or had a spell. She pushed the door open gently and stepped inside. The house was unnervingly silent, save for a faint sputtering sound from the kitchen. A familiar scent, that of boiling water, drifted through the air. A teapot on the stove was boiling over, forgotten, its contents spilling onto the burner with a hiss. Alara, meanwhile, was in the back garden, a little absent-mindedly lost in thought as she tended to her beloved rose bushes, completely unaware that the front door had been left gaping open and a potential kitchen fire brewed within. The smart home system's voice, now clearer and more pronounced, emanated from the central hub in the living room. Fire risk. Kitchen stove detected. Door still open. Security risk. Gerda, propelled by a surge of adrenaline, headed straight for the kitchen, following the insistent voice. She immediately noticed the overflowing teapot and the rising steam. Her hand, so accustomed to the cold metal of locks, moved swiftly to turn off the burner. From the front of the house, the door open alert was still sounding, a relentless digital sentinel. In that moment, Gerda's heart pounded like a blacksmith's hammer. This wasn't just an open door. It was on the very verge of a domestic disaster. Without the smart system's unwavering warnings, who knows what catastrophic consequences might have unfolded? The thought sent a chill down her spine. Gerda, her breath still catching in her throat, quickly went out to the garden and saw Ilara. She called out to her voice more urgent than she intended. Ilara looked at Gerda in surprise, then at the open door, a slight panic flickering in her eyes. The door? But Oh my God, Gerda, she exclaimed, her voice trembling. Thank you so much. I didn't even notice. Oh, the stove too. My goodness, I've been so forgetful lately. Ilara hurried to the door. The smart system was still alerting, a mechanical drone in the background. As Ilara closed the door firmly, a different sound came from the system. A soft, almost triumphant chime followed by a clear, calm voice. Front door closed. Security enabled. Thank you. Gerda and Ilara looked at each other, a shared understanding passing between them. Ilara sighed with immense relief, and Gerda's face held an expression of profound surprise, mingled with a nascent sense of thoughtfulness. For the very first time in her life, she felt genuinely grateful to a machine. For Gerda, this was an undeniable turning point. The machine she had deemed unreliable and ridiculous for years had, without human intervention, saved her neighbor's life and home. This was not just technology, it was a helping hand, a silent guardian. After this incident, Gerda, consumed by a newfound curiosity, called Alex. She sat him down in her workshop, the stark contrast of her worn wooden workbench against his sleek tablet, a silent testament to their generational gap. She pointed to the smart door system's user manual, her finger tracing the diagrams. Alex, she began, a rare hint of eagerness in her voice. This machine, what exactly does it do? How did it know the door was open, and the stove? Alex, delighted by her sudden interest, patiently explained about the various sensors, motion, heat, contact, and the artificial intelligence program that integrated them all. He described how the system detected abnormal situations. Gerda listened, her eyes wide with a surprise that slowly morphed into understanding. So it sees something I can't? She asked, a profound realization dawning on her. Alex nodded enthusiastically. Yes, and it even learns on its own. By understanding Baba and Ilara's habits, it can better detect truly unusual situations, like a door being open for too long or something left on the stove. Gerda's face was now filled not with skepticism, but with pure, unadulterated curiosity. Driven by this revelation, she even had a similar smart lock installed in her own workshop, a quiet experiment she kept to herself. Although she approached it with a locksmith's inherent skepticism at first, she meticulously observed how the system worked, testing its limits, understanding its logic. Around this time, unsettling reports of small thefts began to ripple through the neighborhood, causing unease and a sense of vulnerability. Gerda's sleep became restless. Traditional methods were proving insufficient against these new, elusive threats. Gerda, in a quiet revolution within herself, began to combine her own vast locksmith knowledge, her innate understanding of security flaws and human behavior, with this new observer, the smart system. At night, she would sit in her shop, the only light coming from a small desk lamp in the glow of her tablet. She meticulously took notes in a small, worn notebook, cross-referencing her observations with the notifications pouring in from the Smart Door System app. She examined the door open alerts coming from various neighbors' houses, not just Ilara's. She noticed a disturbing pattern. The alerts from certain homes, particularly during odd hours when no one was home and on specific days, were repeating. There was a rhythm to the crime, a predictable flow that only a machine, processing vast amounts of data, could discern, and only a keen human eye could interpret. One evening, armed with a small flashlight and a new sense of purpose, she walked around the neighborhood. Hidden behind a thick bush, she saw a shadowy figure attempting to pry open a window of a modern house, a house from which she had received repeated door-open alerts. She remembered the alert from the smart system, the pieces clicking into place like the tumblers of a perfectly aligned lock. She immediately called the police, her voice firm and clear. "Yes, this is Gerda, the locksmith. I just received an alert from our neighbor's house that their door was left open, but I saw something strange outside. Someone seemed to be casing the house." The police arrived swiftly, and thanks to Gerda's unparalleled common sense and the undeniable precise data provided by the smart system, the attempted burglary was thwarted, and the thieves were caught red-handed. Gerda, with her hands that had once scorned technology, was now working like a seasoned detective, her traditional wisdom amplified by digital insight. The raw data from the artificial intelligence, combined with her decades of experience and intuition, had not only prevented a crime, but had restored the town's sense of security. She was no longer just a respected locksmith. She had become the new eye of the digital age, a guardian bridging past and future. Word of Gerda's unconventional heroism spread quickly. Soon her shop, once a quiet haven for those seeking traditional lock repairs, became a bustling hub. People gathered, not just for keys, but to thank her, their faces beaming with gratitude. Ilara, Alex, and other neighborhood residents were there, their smiles reflecting genuine appreciation. A group of young people, the very generation Gerda had once dismissed, were now eagerly asking Gerda for advice on smart home systems. Gerda, her heart swelling with a quiet joy, simply smiled. "Let's see," she said, her voice gentle and wise. "Perhaps if we combine my old-fashioned knowledge with this new generation's intelligence, we can be of even greater use to all of you." Gerda, in a profound journey of self-discovery, had set aside her deep-seated prejudices. She had discovered that technology, when understood and embraced, could indeed be a powerful ally, not a cold, impersonal enemy. Her story became a living testament to what age, experience, and traditional wisdom could truly achieve when combined with the boundless potential of new generation technologies. Sometimes the biggest discoveries come from the most unexpected places. And sometimes we learn life's most valuable lessons from that little talking machine we once scoffed at as nonsense. Gerda had unlocked not just the doors of her community, but the stubborn locks in her own heart. And from that moment on, she was no longer just a locksmith. She was the town's new generation hero, a beacon of adaptable wisdom.